Let me break down my philosophy around when I buy real estate deals subject to their existing loan. Now, it is a creative financing tool that I can use to get into, properties with a 2, 3, 4, 5% interest rate. And there's a lot of benefit to that. But because I'm aware of the risk that exists for both myself and the seller, it's something that you want to be mindful of that. If you've been paying attention, I've broken down in a number of videos the risk for both buyers and sellers, as well as the benefits for buyers and sellers. And the way that I view this, so my philosophy for it, right? My overall thoughts around it is that this is a debt, a financing tool that is allowing me to get into properties. Now, ideally this is getting me into premium properties, meaning whether it's younger, better locations, all of that. And so I am mindful of the risk. By understanding those risks that come with that type of debt, or the overall, I mean, debt in general has risk, right? Leverage in general has risk. I'm being mindful. And I'm not trying to, you know, basically overdo those risks as well. So if you gave me an entire portfolio full of subject to deals, that's something I'd be mindful of based on other type of financing tools. Because let's face it, subject to as a financing tool is not my favorite. I definitely prefer either private money or seller financing, like traditional seller financing, um, than subject to. Subject to just has more headaches, more hoops you have to jump through. Doesn't mean I'm not still doing them. I'm just doing them, um, more cautiously. I'm doing them aware of those risks. And so it's important that you're aware of those risks and that you can make educated decisions based on sound investing principles. So let's talk about how, like, for example, I've got some subject to deals that I've been into them for 5, 6 years, something along those lines. And they're to the point where I have paid them down, significantly, and I've got equity in those properties. So now the question begs, should I do something with that equity? What overall do I want? Do I want to keep that property? So, for example, something that matters to me is what's called a loan constant. Now, this is a more advanced financing concept here. But let me just break it down in layman's term. It's the concept of when someone gets a loan, let's just say for a $200,000 loan, and let's just say it's at 3% interest, their monthly payment is based on 200,000 at 3%. And even if you're 10 years into that loan, your monthly payment is still based on 200,000 at 3%. Even if you're 20 years into that loan, a 30-year loan, right? It's still based on 200,000 at 3% interest. And so there's a level there that when you start paying further down into a loan, you are, yes, paying down more principal, but that loan constant concept, it's important to understand. So with that being said, I am looking at some of my properties where I have equity, but I have subject to debt on them and saying, hey, is there a better play for me here? Even if I were to go and restructure that debt solely for what I owe on the property, so not tap into my equity, although I could choose to tap into that equity. Ultimately, I could then, let's just say originally the loan was 200,000 at 3%. Well, what if I got a 7% interest rate loan at 110,000? So if you look at the financing terms when you're basically reshuffling and restructuring your debt, those are some things to keep in mind. Of course, I could always tap into my equity, but those are some things to look at. So for me, subject to debt, it's not always a 30-year game for me, a 20-year game for me. It might be a 2 to 8 year play for me, to eat down a lot of principal. And then, but more importantly, I am looking to um, acquire and control great properties in great locations. And subject to debt allows me to do so, especially when it's sticky situations, things like that. But it's not my ideal long-term debt. You see, for me, I want quality properties, but I also want quality debt, especially when I think about my legacy portfolio and what I want to retire with. So those are things to kind of keep in mind. That's my overall philosophy with subject to deals, is that I don't want to basically, I don't want to throw sound investing principles out the window. I want to make sure I understand the risk. I'm making um, wise decisions when I acquire what's subject to. And there's one of those things where I'm also mindful of what percentage of my portfolio has subject to debt. And that's something where I don't want to tip over and have too much. I don't like the idea of having more than 50% of my portfolio with subject to debt. And so if I find that, then that's something where then I would need to get to work restructuring some of the debt, maybe selling off, not all of my properties are what I call keeper legacy properties. And so maybe I can sell some of those others to then restructure the debt, whatever that looks like. I want to encourage you, if you're looking at whether it's subject to deals or anything else, I would encourage you to develop your own philosophy around it. And a lot of times your philosophy will be a blend of people you've learned from, as well as your own spin on it, because you've got your own risk tolerance, your own the way you approach life. And so understand that that is something that's super important when it comes to how you approach making decisions. And I like to get away from risk, especially as the years trek on. I want to get away from risk so that I can continue to set my family up in a way that we are, um, we've got safer properties in better areas, but with safer debt. And so those are just some of my thoughts, my philosophies around, investing with subject to deals. It's not something I'm stopping doing. It's something I'm cautious and mindful about, and I'm well informed. I'll be honest, out of all the deals that I do, subject to deals carry the most headaches because of the most, all the paperwork. You're still having to deal, you're tied with that seller, things along those lines. So keep that in mind. Hope you guys are enjoying these daily videos. This is another day, another video. Thanks, you guys.